Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Red Spark's Crypto Blog. Today we will be covering the Sundaeswap scooper model, but before that, let's do the usual roundup of the market and crypto news. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, and I don't know what's going to happen to the market any more than you do. So, in the last 24 hours, Bitcoin has been playing its Bitcoin games. It dipped right down to about 60K momentarily for a period of hours, causing the rest of the market by and large to go down with it. And now it's miraculously recovered. Um, and so that's just the usual volatility of Bitcoin. The big question that everybody wants to know is whether Bitcoin will now ascend up to 95K as predicted by Plan B, or potentially just hover around at these levels or go down further. All of these are a possibility. I really have no idea. My gut tells me that it's probably going to hover around in the 65 to 70K range for the next month or so. But let's see. And I was reading somewhere about Bitcoin dominance starting to fall again, which would be great if Bitcoin just hovers around and gives altcoins time to catch up. And we see the same picture play out in the Cardano price chart. Similar dip followed by a similar recovery. And also my new favorite coin, Koti. Down it dipped and then it went back up again. And I've been buying Koti for the last day or two now. So at these sort of price points, in fact, probably around where this line is here. One coin that did not have that dip, Solana, that's gone up day by day. So that's doing really well. And the big question on everybody's mind, and now that it's flipped Cardano, is how high can Solana go? So let me take you through some of the plays that I've been doing in recent days. Firstly, I bought a large amount of Koti. It's something that I've been meaning to buy months ago when I was living in the US, but it was impossible to buy it there. And I finally got my hands on some through crypto.com the other day. So I've built up a large-ish position in Koti by selling some of my Cardano. I then threw in a little bit into Chainlink. So Chainlink is one that hasn't really been performing as well as some investors would have hoped. Let's take a 90-day look here. In fact, let's take a 180-day look. So it hasn't really reached its all-time highs again. It's just been hovering. But it is one that has a partnership with Cardano, similar to Koti, as well as other smart contract platforms. It is the de facto Oracle solution for smart contracts, including Ethereum. So sooner or later, I feel like this will pump. So I decided to throw a little bit in there during the dip of the last 24 hours. One controversial purchase I made was Solana. I'm not really a fan of the tokenomics of Solana, specifically the fact that a large amount of the coins are held by VCs, and there's a chart floating around on Twitter all about that. But my investor thesis on Solana is people will want it, and by people I mean the big whales, will want to pump it till it's certainly above BNB and possibly even close to the Ethereum levels. I think the large VCs that hold Solana are very well, they have deep pockets firstly, they have strong hands, and I think they are interested in seeing it flip BNB and possibly Ethereum. So I think there's a little bit more to ride there, but at the same time, I'm under no illusion. I do think Solana has a high chance of crashing sooner or later. So this isn't necessarily a long-term play for me. I'm just going to have a small bit of skin in the game so that I don't feel the FOMO when I see it go up. And that's a trick I tend to use when I'm heavily invested in one coin, but I see other coins going up. I just buy a small amount just to feel like I can enjoy the excitement of these other coins. Other than that, Shiba Inu is falling quite dramatically. I can see on Twitter some people are asking, oh, is it going to go back up? If so, they want to buy. I'm just staying away from Shiba. I'm staying away from Doge. I really have no interest in them whatsoever. Terra Luna has been shooting up 21% in 7 days, as well as Avalanche. These two are ones that people have mentioned to me. I haven't yet researched them. I do know a little bit about Avalanche. Avalanche potentially could be the next Solana, for example. Terra Luna, I know very little about, so I do have to research that. But there's just to say, there's a bit of buzz happening around these two, and it could go either way. It could be these coins that shoot up into the top 10 and then they plummet again, just like ICP, or perhaps they'll have a bit more staying power like Solana. So really, just do your research and buy with caution. I'm seeing more and more headlines like this these days. Crypto market now worth more than top dozen largest banks combined. Latest Ethereum price record means it alone now ranks above every leading global bank in terms of market cap. And that's not even including the entire Ethereum ecosystem, which covers decentralized finance. I even had someone send me a link the other day to an Australian news article saying that banks in Australia are going to have to accept Bitcoin in order to survive in the future. So there's definitely a growing acceptance of cryptocurrencies into the traditional financial markets. My old city of New York has elected Eric Adams, who will take his first 3 paychecks in Bitcoin. The mayor-elect said he plans to make New York the center of the cryptocurrency industry after he takes office in January. So that is great news. New York really has had draconian rules around cryptocurrencies. For a long while, it was very, very hard to buy Cardano there, for example. So other states have been much more forward-thinking, and New York really has been somewhat left behind because of its, I guess, strong ties to traditional finance. It was probably going to be the last bastion to fall, so to speak. But it's good to see that they now have a forward-thinking mayor who understands cryptocurrencies and who is pro-crypto and wants to encourage the cryptocurrency industry in New York. Hopefully, we can have a similar thing over here in London too. The UK really has been somewhat quiet on crypto, other than on the tax guidelines. I think there's a lot more we can do here to boost the crypto industry. Speaking of the UK, I feel now is the time to take that mandatory slurp of a beverage that crypto YouTubers seem to like to do, and tell you that I'm drinking freshly brewed PG Tips bought from my local Sainsbury's. Okay, moving on. Those of you who follow me on Twitter will know that I was very excited to read Sundaeswap's latest paper, the Scooper model. This is a long-awaited Sundaeswap solution to the concurrency problem. Other dexes had already revealed how they were tackling the problem, but Sundaeswap had held off. They previously said that they wanted to release details on their model closer to launch time in order to avoid losing their competitive advantage. And it was such a great read, I must say. I'm going to try and go through it in this video, but at a high level, they compared lots of different types of solutions, as you see across the top here. And they had their list of criteria that they were measuring them on, which they describe up there. They started off with escrow tokens being their preferred method a few months ago. And then they realized that that had certain issues, particularly around denial of service attacks. They then tried mixed escrows, and they still kind of do like this idea, but it would require them a lot more time to sort of properly research. And then finally, they settled on governed scoopers, which is a fairly good solution. The only criticism one could potentially level at it is that it is somewhat centralized in the sense that it's going to require stake pool operators, and they're going to be getting the community to select these stake pool operators through a vote. But a collection of stake pool operators would be running the Sundaeswap protocol in order to aggregate orders and batch them. So I'll try and go through everything in this video, but it was a huge relief to see this paper, as it alleviated one of my biggest concern in recent days, which is putting aside the whole longer term scalability debate. Were we going to see the Cardano blockchain failing in the near term when DEXs launch? Would they be able to handle the massive amounts of demand to use DEXs on the Cardano blockchain. And would these dApps be designed in such a way that they could handle that demand? The interesting thing about the paper is it made references to other solutions by other projects, not as a criticism of other projects, but just to say that they thought about all these other solutions and here's what they thought were the drawbacks of each one. Honestly, reading this paper got me hugely excited about the imminent dApp launch. Sundaeswap must clearly feel that the PAB issues have been resolved and that should be launched soon on mainnet, and then they themselves will probably be launching soon thereafter, given what they previously said about wanting to hold on to their solution until closer to their launch date. Now, this video is already pretty long and it's about to get longer, so I would appreciate giving a thumbs up if you're liking the content. Consider hitting subscribe, leave feedback below, and follow me on Twitter. And if you're not interested in the technical side of things, now's probably a good time to drop off. Thank you to the one person still watching. Really appreciate your support. So this is the first solution that Sundaeswap discuss, open batching. Now, I'm not a DEX expert, so I can't say I understand every single part of it. But roughly speaking, they have this idea of an aggregator, or as they call it, a scooper, that will take or scoop up the different orders that people make. So swap X tokens for at least Y tokens by both Alice and Bob, and it will go through, aggregate them up into a single batch swap that will then be executed and then distributed. The problem with this method, as they wrote, was that it's susceptible to a denial of service attack. A malicious scooper executes a trade including 0 or 1 orders, delaying execution of other orders in the interim. In an ecosystem of competing actors, this might be okay. However, once you submit one transaction like this, you have the transaction ID before it propagates across the network and have an advantage in building and submitting the next transaction. A sophisticated attacker can spam the network with a long chain of these transactions and be accepted into the mempool for future blocks fairly easily. This attack, which we've been calling a trickle attack, is very cheap to execute and brings deeply traded markets to a complete halt. So hopefully MinSwap, whose solution is apparently similar to this, and I'll have to check MinSwap's Twitter later to see what their reaction is, but hopefully MinSwap have already thought about this and have a solution in place for that. Another flaw in our view is its very high vulnerability to miner extractable value. So this has become a popular term recently. Well, not recently, it's been a popular term in Ethereum circles. Miner extractable values means that the node operators, so in Ethereum it's been miners, they can prioritize which transactions to carry out. And in Ethereum, where different transactions are worth different amounts to the miner, they tend to prioritize the higher value transactions over the lower value transactions. An example given here is that of a sandwich attack, where the miner will process a large number of buy orders that push the price up. Then, when they see a large amount of sell orders coming in, the miner will first do a single sell order from their own wallet, and then a large number of sell orders will be put in place to bring the price back down. So these are just some of the things that are going on currently in the Ethereum ecosystem, and it was felt that this method would be susceptible to that as well. The next solution they looked at was whether people could submit their transactions into an empty escrow transaction, and that would allow the pool to know how many tokens should be processed. Therefore, if you've got rogue actors on this side, it can easily be sort of verified. This prevented market censure. Combined with a way to make the swap calculation order independent, this eliminated all MEV. Users would spend their funds into an empty escrow token, which would get included in the next batch. There would be some contention among users who accidentally chose the wrong escrow, but with enough escrows this would be rare and would provide a similar experience to occasionally having to retry your online credit card transactions. This solution bears the most resemblance to the solution proposed by Meld, where they reference reserve tokens. But they go on to say, unfortunately, this solution crashes headfirst into the sizing limits of the Cardano blockchain. The probabilistic nature of the argument above depends on hundreds of escrow tokens, and in practice, our first implementation of this was hitting the Cardano protocol limits with 5 or 6 escrow tokens before even adding in features like governance. So if you imagine for this solution to work, they would just need to have lots and lots of these escrow tokens being generated. Additionally, it is very cheap and easy to occupy these escrow tokens with illegitimate orders, effectively creating a denial of service for the bulk of legitimate traffic. So that's kind of similar to the previous concern, but instead of a denial of service on this side, it's now spamming the system with these fake escrow tokens. Finally, there is contention among the scooper and the escrow tokens, destroying a lot of the nice scalability properties anyway. And by contention, they mean when there's multiple escrow tokens and multiple batch swaps and they're all trying to fight each other to sort of match up with each one another, that can cause inefficiencies in the system with multiple batch swaps trying to get the same escrow tokens and so on. Mixed escrows. This is one that I couldn't really visualize. Literally, they didn't provide a chart. They say we consider one last extension, mixing both token holding escrows and tokenless escrows. By allowing a mixture of tokenized and untokenized orders, we could provide a baseline guaranteed order flow if a user was willing to retry until their order got in, while also allowing arbitrary concurrency to most casual users. So yeah, I think I'd need a diagram of that to fully appreciate what, I mean, I understand the key concept there, which is the token holding escrows would also be mixed with tokenless escrows, but exactly how that helps matters I'm not so clear on. Under the resource limits of Cardano transactions and our quickly approaching development timeline, we did not feel we could deliver a compelling, fair, and a safe set of incentives around the protocol in time to launch, and so we abandoned this approach. This is one of the approaches we may revisit in the future when the Cardano transaction limits change or when we have time to devote to thoroughly exploring the right incentive structures to prevent denial of service. Programmable order book. So this was a rather innovative idea of essentially getting rid of the middleman, the automatic market maker, which does all that matching up of orders. And instead, users lock their funds in a script which encodes the criteria for their order, what they want to trade, at what price, dollar cost average, etc. A key tenet of this approach is a lack of a market maker, which I just said, and market participants operate completely independently of one another. This appears to be most similar to the solution described by Maladex. It has a number of benefits, and the Maladex paper does an excellent job of describing these advantages, so I'm definitely going to have to go back and read through that. But the problem was that it was an inefficient use of liquidity. Unlike a market maker, which could ensure both orders are filled with a pure order book, whether or not the orders are filled depends on which offers Jack and Jill attempt to match against. In the above example, both parties decide to include Bob's order in their match transaction. So both Jack and Jill are attempting to buy from Bob. Unfortunately, only one of the orders, in this case Jill's, will be filled. But can't Jack just resubmit his transaction against Alice and Carol? Yes, but this leads us to the next issue. And they go on to talk about just the general difficulties of trying to match up orders when you just don't have a automated market maker in the middle handling the orders. So instead of a single order that requires 12 transactions to fill, Jack could instead create 12 orders that each match against a single order. Doing so today, Jack would run into the following issues: fees and network congestion. Fees, so that means they're now doing 12 transactions instead of one, and obviously network congestion, order erosion, market depth requirement. There was just a multitude of issues with that method that I won't go through. So then that brings us on to Sundaeswap's actual solution, which they're calling the Scooper model / AMM order book model. So this solution is an extension of the order book model. but with stake pool operators acting as the automated market maker. Like a pure order book, market participants can place a good until cancelled orders onto the blockchain. These don't require interacting with any pre-existing entities and so don't suffer from the UTXO contention problems in other protocols' design. Using a programmable API, these orders can be tailored to the market participants' desires. However, unlike a pure order book, the liquidity pool can rely on the orderly and efficient execution of swaps enabled by the automated market maker. So how do we ensure that our scoopers are honest? The first step is choosing trusted members of the community to run them. Cardano is blessed in that it already has a diverse set of participants with a reputation and pedigree for this. Thus, just as we select stake pools to partner with for our ISO, we also will be selecting stake pools to run these scoopers. Later today, we will be sending out a sign-up form for stake pool operators to apply to be part of the ISO and to run a Sundaeswap scooper. After filtering this list based on some simple criteria like social media presence and experience, we will then turn things over to you, our community, and be hosting a week-long vote to choose the initial set of scoopers. So they go on to talk about the governance of how we elect scoopers and renew their contracts and so on. So it's not a bad solution. We do have a lot of very honest, hardworking stake pool operators within the Cardano ecosystem. And I think it's only right that they can earn some extra fees by acting as nodes for the Sundaeswap protocol. I'm sure this solution will stir up a lot of discussion and debate within the Cardano community, but I'm mostly relieved to know that there are solutions in place to cope with the demand that is expected when these DEXs launch, and hopefully it's the same for the other DEXs. And then that gives us time to work out a better long-term solution. And I know there's debates and discussions around Hydra and other topics that I've covered in other videos that are going on right now. That's it from me. I hope you liked the video. Again, if you enjoyed it and you've watched it all the way through to the end, then I thank you. Please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I hope you all have a great day.